Kenneth K. woke up in the back seat of an ambulance traveling westbound on I-10 toward Lafayette General Hospital. He began shaking from a fit of violent coughing, and the EMT gently helped him roll onto his side to clear his airway of mucus and regurgitation. "What the hell happened?" Kenneth coughed. "The factory caught fire," the EMT said. "What?" Kenneth asked in horror. "Is everything okay?" The ER doctor didn't answer him, just continued to monitor Kenneth's vital signs, and then put the mask back over Kenneth's mouth and nose so Kenneth's lungs could fill with oxygen. The emergency room at Lafayette Hospital was filled with victims of the Bender's factory fire who were being triaged and examined in order of severity. "No, no, examine her first," Kenneth demanded as the orderly began rolling him into the compartment ahead of Patsy Bordelon. "You have head injuries, she has burns," the orderly corrected him. "What?" "I don't have," Kenneth said, and passed out again. When he came to, bright sunlight was beaming through the window. The ward was half closed. The other bed was occupied by Big Mike. They jokingly called him Big Mike. The man was just over 5 feet tall. Big Mike was very stocky, his chest and arms a mass of bulging muscles. "We're damn lucky to be alive at all," Big Mike groaned when he noticed Kenneth was awake. "Uh-huh," Kenneth moaned, not feeling lucky. "Heard some of us died," Big Mike continued, and then Kenneth heard Big Mike sob quietly. "Oh my God," Kenneth moaned, sighing wistfully at the thought of his friends and co-workers dying. "Man, what the hell happened?" Big Mike asked. "I don't know. I bought some cocaine from a vending machine and then woke up in some ambulance," Kenneth admitted. 4 days later, Lafayette General discharged Kenneth K. Big Mike suffered a broken back and will be in the hospital for a few more days. Jennifer K., Kenneth's wife, drove 40 miles from Bender to Lafayette to pick up her husband. The tall blonde woman let him know she wasn't thrilled that she had to make such a long trip. Kenneth sat next to her and wondered, not for the first time, why he had married this flighty woman in the first place. Yes, she was beautiful, or had been beautiful 19 years ago standing behind the McDonald's counter, but beauty alone was not enough to justify her attitude or behavior. Their marriage was the usual, "Guess what, honey?" And Kenneth had agreed to do the right thing, marry the scared, angry Jennifer Moore, and give the child growing in her belly a loving home. He put his dream of becoming a professional baseball player on the back shelf, along with his dream of becoming a rock star bassist, and took a job at Bender's mattress factory. When he learned that shifts from midnight to 8 paid 20 cents an hour more, he jumped at the chance. "No, no, no. The more we can save up, honey, the sooner we can get out of this horrible apartment and buy our own house for you, me, and Kenny," Kenneth said as he stroked his wife's swelling belly. Jennifer gave birth to a beautiful blonde baby girl and named her Jadiah Ann K. Jadiah? Kenneth wrinkled his face at the strange name. "Yeah, see, I went to school with this girl. Her mom named her Verisa, you know? Instead of Teresa. And I remember thinking it was so cool that her mom loved her enough to give her kid her own name, you know? I mean, there are hundreds of Jennifers in the world, but how many Veers do you know, huh?" Jennifer explained. "Greedy?" Kenneth interjected. "Where the hell did that come from?" "Yeah, it's like Nadia, only with a G, okay?" Jennifer said. Kenneth sighed, realizing it was useless to argue with Jennifer. She had already made up her mind. No sooner had Jadiah started walking than Jennifer announced that they were expecting a baby again. "Okay, but I'm going to name this baby," Kenneth insisted. "Uh-huh," Jennifer replied, not about to let him name her baby. Jalissa Amy K. was born, a bushy blonde with blue eyes like her mother's. "Jalissa?" Kenneth asked, frowning. "My mom's name is Melissa, so it's like Melissa, only with a J," Jennifer explained and began cooing and cradling the wrinkled infant. "Sounds like a name for a beggar," Bernice K., Kenneth's mother, whispered loudly. Kenneth had been saving, despite Jennifer's penchant for extravagant spending, and had managed to raise a tidy sum to fulfill his dream of a family home of his own. "Okay, you can buy it, but I'm not living here," Jennifer grumbled when Kenneth showed her the house they could afford. "It's a starter home," he patiently tried to explain. "I've saved up enough money so we can buy it outright and then renovate it, sell it, and use the proceeds to buy a bigger house." But Jennifer decided that the bigger house should come now, not later, and made Kenneth shell out a tidy sum for a much bigger house. At 14% interest, the mortgage was easily eating up more than half of his paycheck. As all three women and Kenneth were settling into their home, Jennifer announced that they were having a baby again. "Damn it, honey," Kenneth whined. "I can barely feed us. And now we're having another baby?" 6-year-old Jadiah and 5-year-old Jalissa decided they hated JC Alice K and tormented the little brunette infant as often as they could. Kenneth hadn't even asked the baby's name or inquired about its origins. Both he and Jennifer were blonde, and both had light blue eyes. There had only been one brunette in Kenneth's lineage in the last 100 years, and no one was sure of Oliver K's ancestry. But even Oliver had light blue eyes, not dark brown like JCK. Very little was known about Jennifer's lineage. Most of her relatives had lost touch with each other years ago, so it was entirely possible that the brown hair and brown eyes were a recessive gene somewhere in Jennifer's lineage. But JC had been a daddy's girl since birth. Jennifer was content to take care of her two girls, leaving the care of JC to her father, and leaving JC's protection to her father, too. "Mommy, he hit me," Jalissa screamed at the top of her lungs after Kenneth spanked her. "I caught her when she was about to drop this on JC's head," Kenneth explained, holding up a large ceramic piggy bank. "I wasn't going to," Jalissa lied. "I just showed it to her." "While she was sleeping?" Kenneth smirked, and Jalissa blushed nobly at being caught in such an obvious lie. Kenneth didn't notice that Jalissa addressed him as he instead of daddy. Nor did he notice that JD did the same, calling him he or him, but never daddy, or any other word denoting kinship. Jennifer, on the other hand, picked up on this and smirked whenever her two angels did the same. 19 years later, rushing down the I-10 freeway in his shabby Ford F-150 pickup truck, Kenneth wasn't allowed to ride in her BMW even though he paid for it. He wondered again why he'd married her in the first place. "So," she spat out the first word she'd uttered since he'd climbed into the passenger seat of the pickup. "I guess now that you're out of work, you're going to be slacking all day, huh?" "I'm not out of work," he protested. "Oh, come on, Kenneth, the damn factory's gone," Jennifer shouted. "Are you going to stand in the ashes?" "No, Big Eddie came to the hospital and said we'll get paid even if we don't work until the new factory opens," Kenneth protested. "Nah, so you think you're just going to sit here and ruin all my fun?" Jennifer snorted. "Spoil what fun?" Kenneth asked as she pulled up in front of their garage. "If you think I'm going to give up dating you just because you're home, you've got another hell of a thing coming," she hissed as she entered the house. "Wait, what?" Kenneth asked, sure he hadn't heard her correctly. "You heard me, asshole," she hissed, then smiled strainedly. "I guess not, huh?" she asked, smiling even wider. "Well, now that it's out in the open, I guess I don't have to pretend anymore." "Wait, what are you talking about?" Kenneth asked. "Come on, Kenneth, grow up, eh, Peanut?" Jennifer giggled. "Like everyone else figured that out years ago. You're at work, I'm away." Kenneth's head ached, and his vision blurred as he listened to his wife's account of her many infidelities. Behind her, her two angels laughed at him. JC, on the other hand, looked utterly mortified as she listened to her mother berate her father. "Well, pack your shit up and take your two precious little bitches with you," Kenneth finally hissed. "Oh no, honey," Jennifer laughed loudly. "No, no, no. It doesn't work that way. It's a no-divorce state, which means I get half of everything, plus custody of the kids. That means you have to pay the mortgage, the car payment, and child support. Oh, and you can kiss your precious little angel goodbye. I'll never let you see her again. Go ahead, dumbass. Divorce me. I dare you. Now, if we're done, I have a date with Cecil. I'll see you later." Kenneth watched in shock as she walked up the stairs, already pulling her cell phone out of her purse. "Hey, Cecil. Yeah, dumbass is home. Do you think you can pick me up in about 30? Jennifer said, slamming the door to the master bedroom. "Daddy, I swear I didn't know anything about—" JC whispered, sobbing and hugging her father tightly. "Honey, it's going to be okay," Kenneth whispered, hugging the 12-year-old girl tightly. "Peanut," Jalissa giggled, coming out of the kitchen with her massive bulk. "It'll be okay," Kenneth assured her. Chapter 2. Kenneth gave a strained smile as a car pulled up in front of the house with ghetto music blaring from it. "See ya," Jennifer exclaimed cheerfully and smirked when Kenneth gave her the finger. "I should get Cecil to come over here and beat the shit out of you," she hissed hatefully. "I wouldn't advise that if I were you," he agreed easily. "Screw you, asshole," she growled, unable to think of anything else to say. "Never again, but hurry up. Don't keep me waiting," Kenneth said, and turned to the computer screen again. The door slammed shut and Kenneth shook his head sadly. With 2 more clicks, all of Jennifer's credit cards were canceled and the balances were paid off in full. He then increased the amount of the mortgage and car insurance and lowered the deductible on both. The increased insurance premiums were paid from a secret bank account that Jennifer had opened. Kenneth knew about her account. He had known about it for years, but since she only transferred $300 or $400 a month into it, he saw no reason to make a fuss about it. Opening a new bank account in his and his mother's name had taken a little longer. He wanted his children to be taken care of, even if, according to Jennifer, he wasn't the parent of any of them. He smiled as he transferred $42,580 from Jennifer's secret account to his new account. Finally, he sighed, leaned back in his chair, and picked up the phone. "Hi, Mom," he said. 5 minutes later, Kenneth was already stomping up the stairs. Jalissa's door was the first on the left, so he knocked hard on it. "What?" Jalissa shouted defiantly. "Open the door," Kenneth ordered. "Go away," she barked back. "Okay," Kenneth said and tried the knob. "Get out, oaf," Jalissa giggled as he rattled the handle of the locked door. "Uh-huh," Kenneth said and took a step back. Jalissa shrieked in horror as the door shattered into pieces. "I said open the door and I meant open the door," Kenneth growled. "Now get your fat ass up and get in the car, now." "Screw you, you can't tell me what to do," the 17-year-old girl shouted, still scared. Kenneth yanked her out of bed by her greasy hair, slapped her face twice and calmly said, "I'm not kidding. Get your fat lazy ass in the car now." "Ned!" Jadia didn't even wait for her father to knock on the door. She was a coward who hid behind her mom or Jalissa. She rushed down the stairs and climbed into the back seat of her mom's BMW. JC looked apprehensively at her father approaching. "Come on, get in the car," Kenneth told her quietly. "Yes, sir," JC replied. "Please take care of Pebbles." JC pleaded in a low whisper. "Damn, I forgot about—" "Okay, I'll take care of her," Kenneth promised. Pebbles was JC's cat. She'd lived with her since she was 9 years old. She named her after the Flintstones cartoon. Because of their love for the cat, JD and Jalissa constantly tried to hurt her. Therefore, the animal was distrustful of everyone but JD. "Wait, what does that mean?" JD asked incredulously. "I know what it means," JD gave her father a strained smile. "Thanks, Mom," Kenneth exclaimed as the girls approached the house. Kenneth went into Huol Texaco and bought 2 5-gallon canisters and filled them with gasoline. "Might want to put some newspaper in there," the clerk advised as Kenneth loaded the 2 canisters into the trunk of the expensive car. "The hell with it," Kenneth smiled. Kenneth walked back to the house, picked up the crate in which they'd taken the cat to Dr. Dupre's office for his annual vaccination, and entered the house. As usual, Pebbles was nowhere to be seen, and she did not answer Kenneth's call. Finally, he pulled out a can of cat food and closed the lid. He poured the odorous substance onto one of Grandma Jennifer's porcelain plates and waited patiently. Finally, the odor won out, and Pebbles climbed out from behind the couch to survey the situation. "Gotcha, you rotten critter," Kenneth smiled and put the cat and plate away in the desk drawer. Jalissa hummed irritably as her mother's cell phone switched back to voicemail. "Mom, call me back. I'm at Grandma's. Dad's gone crazy, it's true. Call me," she whispered. "So that you don't have to whisper, I know you're calling Mom," Bernice snapped back, startling Jalissa. "Why do I have to be here?" Jalissa pounced on the woman. "I'm 17. I'm old enough to take care of myself." "Yes, I'm 18, Jadia replied, standing behind Jalissa. "Bye," Bernice waved her hand. "You don't want to be here? Then I definitely don't want you here." The 2 girls smirked as they headed for the front door. "How are you going to get home?" Bernice asked. "It's 9 miles, and I know neither of you have ever walked that far in your life." "No, but you can drive us," ordered Jalissa. "We can, but I'm not going to," Bernice said, and started getting bowls for the stew she was making. "Then how are we going to—" Jalissa exclaimed. "I don't know what to do, but I don't care," said Bernice and placed 3 bowls on the table. "JC, Melvin, dinner's ready." "Excuse me," Melvin ordered, pushing Jalissa aside with force. "Where is my seat?" Jalissa asked as JC took her place at the table. "I think your place is where you go, remember? You're old enough to take care of yourselves. Bye," Bernice said as she waved her hand. "I hate you," Jalissa shouted to her grandmother. How sweet, dear, Bernice smiled. Bye. Kenneth put a few holes in the gas tank of the BMW and, after much deliberation, a few in the tank of his pickup truck. Then he carried the first of the 5-gallon canisters upstairs and started on the bedroom he shared with Jennifer. He liberally doused the bed, dresser, and low closet. Sighing, he looked at the 42-inch plasma TV, then shrugged, picked up one of her ridiculous figurines and tossed it at the expensive TV. When he walked into JC's room and started pouring gasoline on her bedroom, his stomach hurt. He noticed a small framed photograph and picked it up. It showed him and JC posing with a small fish she had caught when he first took her fishing. He carried the picture downstairs and placed it on the crate. Inside the crate, Pebbles, having gotten her treat, had already started squealing. He went back upstairs and gleefully doused JD and Jalissa's rooms with the remains of the first canister of gasoline. Then he simply poured the canister on Jalissa's bed. He emptied the second canister all over the furniture downstairs. He then took a crate and a small photograph and left the house. He set the crate and the picture on the edge of the driveway and then walked up to the house. He set up the sprinkler and shut it off, directing the spray toward Ray's house. On the other side, he did the same thing, directing the spray at Debbie's house. Then he smiled as he looked at the expensive Hulk that Jennifer had insisted on buying for the house he didn't want, didn't love, but had called home for the past 14 years. He opened the front door, flicked a match in the fireplace, and dropped it on the gasoline-soaked oriental rug. Then he closed the door, walked to the edge of the driveway, and waited. When the first fire truck arrived, it was too late. All that was left of the house was a ball of flame. Ray's house had already begun to smolder, although Kenneth had made sure to put a sprinkler on it, so the first fire truck was trying to keep the flames away from Ray's house. Debbie's house was a little farther away, so the second fire engine was helping the first one, which was dealing with Ray's house. What happened? Sheriff Dick Davis asked as Kenneth stood on the opposite side of the street, holding a rickety box and a small, framed photograph. Set it on fire, Kenneth shrugged. My wife Jennifer and I figured if we burned it down, we'd get the insurance money and then buy a smaller place we could afford. You started this fire? Intentionally? Sheriff Dick Davis asked, making sure Deputy Orville Jackson was close enough to hear Kenneth's confession. Yeah, Kenneth shrugged. Took the offspring to my mom's for dinner, you know, and then went to Huval's, bought a couple cans of gasoline and spilled it all over the place. Yeah, and the car too. Those damn payments were just killing us, you know? But hell, I forgot about the truck. See, it's paid for. So when do you think we'll get the insurance money? Sir, where's your wife? Dick asked. I don't know. She said she didn't want to see him, you know? And her friend came and got her, said Kenneth and set the box on the ground. Pebbles' hand was beginning to tire. Sir, put your hands behind your back, please, Dick said. Damn smart, Jadia complained as she and Jalissa walked down Highway 19 toward their house. Could have just waited until we ate and he would have picked us up. He wouldn't have come back for us, Jalissa grinned. We'd have been stuck until Mom would have come and picked us up. How much farther do we have to go? Jadia asked. Look around, Jadia, said Jalissa, pointing to the neighborhood. Is that anywhere near our house? I'll go back, Jadia decided. Jalissa wanted to go back to her grandmother's house too, but her pride wouldn't let her. He seems glad to be here, Orville remarked as they looked at Kenneth K. Yes, and have you figured out what to do with his cat yet? Dick asked. Yep, and here she is, smiled Orville as his sister entered the station. Hello, Barney Fife, smiled Wilhelmina Jackson, holding out 2 small pills to her brother. I would have thought a big cop like ours would know where to get phenobarbital. I know. Call my little sister, Orville smiled. Thanks, sis. Yeah, where's that cutie Eric Green? Asked Willie, looking around. I've got the day off, Dick smiled. But I'll be sure to tell him you were looking for him. Better. My dog got cramps because I gave you the medicine. At least you could have that fine asshole take me out, Willie smiled. She turned to walk out of the station. And I'm not talking about any McDonald's. It better be a Manny's or a touch of Sicily, you hear me? She shouted, stepping out of the small building. Do you think we should tell her that Eric is gay? Dick asked Orville. Really? Orville asked, eyes wide. No, but he's scared to death of that girl, smiled Dick. Now, Barney Fife, how are you going to shove that thing down a cat's throat? Watch and learn, replied Orville smugly. He took 2 pills and crushed them with the butt of his service revolver. He then took 3 small containers of coffee creamer and poured their contents onto a small plate. The crushed pills were poured into the plate. Dick grinned as he watched Orville carry the contents of the plate to the small cabinet where they had hidden the box. Dick smirked as Orville returned, clutching his bloody hand to his chest. Got any better ideas? Orville snapped back. Uh-huh. Lafayette Animal Control is on its way, Dick said. That's why he's sheriff and you're not, Officer Mike Stevens said as he applied antiseptic to Orville's bleeding hand. Go get your granddaughter, Bernice ordered Melvin as Jadia sat at the table eating warmed stew. The Braves will win by a 1-goal margin and that's 8, Melvin objected. Go on, I guarantee nothing will happen in the 10 minutes you'll be gone, Bernice said. I'll watch you and tell you what happened, JC offered. Tell you what, woman, follow her, Melvin said, already putting on his boots. Melvin, you know I hate driving at night. Bernice smiled as she watched her husband obediently prepare to fulfill her request. Uh-huh, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, Melvin said. Go, Braves, shouted JC and Melvin cheerfully as Melvin opened the door. You're all so silly, Bernice smiled. Melvin spotted Jalissa sitting on the side of Highway 19, hunched over. He smiled strained. She hadn't traveled 2 miles before she gave up. He made a sharp U-turn, then pulled up and stopped in front of her. He rolled down the passenger window. Get in, he commanded. Jalissa didn't say a word, just rose to her feet and got into the car. Melvin watched with mildly perverse satisfaction as Jalissa wiped her tear-drenched face, trying not to let him notice. Grandma's heating up some stew for you, Melvin said quietly as they stopped in front of the house. Thanks, Jalissa whispered. Cecil wasn't amused that Jennifer's MasterCard and Visa cards had been declined. Grumbling, he pulled out 3 crumpled $20 bills and slapped them onto a small platter the waiter held out. Bill for $59.19, the waiter said quietly. Yes, Cecil spat. That's 3 20s, isn't it? Ah, yes, sir. Very good, sir, the waiter said tautly and walked away. They expect a tip, Jennifer hissed. They can expect any shit they want, but that doesn't mean I have to give it, does it? Cecil spat. Well, I was going to offer to take him to the Hilton and Towers, but for some reason my cards... Jennifer said, and smiled to herself as the waiter dumped Cecil's change on the table in front of him. Thank you, Cecil grinned. My pleasure, sir. The waiter smiled as Cecil defiantly counted out his change and left the waiter with a penny. So what are you saying? Cecil asked as they waited for the valet to bring the car around. I guess I want to say that I know I promised you, but... replied Jennifer. The back seat will do, Cecil said, and opened the door in front of her. Tell Animal Control that this is my daughter's cat. Her name is JC, and here's a phone number where they can reach her, Kenneth said, as Orville walked around the cells with a bandaged hand. What? Orville asked incredulously. The cat belongs to me, Kenneth repeated. You knew that an hour ago and you didn't say anything? Orville asked, his voice getting louder. It wasn't a problem an hour ago, shrugged Kenneth. I'll call her, snapped Orville and staggered away. I told you I think he's out there having fun, Dick smiled, watching Orville mutter something to himself. Wow, any sign of his wife? Orville asked. No, says he doesn't know her friend's name except Cecil, shrugged Dick. Bet he knows not only the bastard's full name, but his phone number, address, his mommy's phone number and address, and what shoe size the bastard wears, snapped Orville. How's the arm? Dick smiled. Jennifer got out of the car and stared at the charred and smoldering remains of her house in bewilderment. What the hell happened? She asked, not expecting an answer. Shut the door, huh? Cecil ordered. What? Jennifer asked, looking at him incredulously. Close the door, I'm late, Cecil ordered. You're just going to leave me here? Jennifer asked. What the hell do you want me to do, huh? Take you home with me? Cecil smirked. Yeah, I imagine my mommy's going to be running all over the place under that shit. Mrs. K? Officer Becky Winter asked. Oh, look at this shit. Hey, officer, pull the car back, do you hear me? Cecil ordered. Becky's car was blocking his exit. You, show me some ID, Becky ordered him. So, are you Mrs. Jennifer K? Officer, what happened to my house? Jennifer asked. Please answer the question, Becky snapped back. Are you Jennifer K? Yes, I am, Jennifer agreed. So what happened to my house? Jennifer K., put your hands behind your back. Jennifer K., you have the right to remain silent. Becky began the ritual. Jennifer was in a daze as she was checked in, fingerprinted, searched. She woke up enough to call Becky Zima, a lesbian, and then placed in a cell with 3 prostitutes who chatted and laughed with each other in Spanish. The court hearing will be tomorrow morning, Becky again patiently explained to a furious Jennifer K. That's when bail will be set. Until then, try to get some sleep, huh? Why don't you kiss my ass, you dampier? Hissed Jennifer back. In the morning, Jennifer was assigned Donald Pellichet as the pro bono representative. Donald kept an impassive face as Jennifer proclaimed her innocence and looked at her hatefully when Donald explained that her husband had implicated her in their arson for profit plan. Really? Kenneth asked Sophia Kutra, his own pro bono attorney. You're saying it's illegal, but I was just doing what my wife told me to do. You see, in our family, she's in charge. Ask anyone, and they'll tell you Jennifer is in charge. You son of a bitch! Jennifer shouted to Kenneth when they finally saw each other at the St. Elizabeth Parish Courthouse. Kenneth smirked as he watched Donald and the bailiff forcibly restrain Jennifer. You bastard, I will destroy you! Jennifer screamed as he was led into the courtroom to Judge Jack Melanson. Stop being so nice, Kenneth whispered to Sophia Coutre as the defense attorney actively demanded her client be released without bail. What? She asked, stunned. I said stop being so nice and let me sit where I am, Kenneth said, and she finally looked at the ADA. Adam quickly agreed that Kenneth could remain a guest of the state, and Kenneth was transferred to the Dehard jail to await trial. So, Mr. K, what's really going on? Sophia asked. And yes, everything is being recorded. The system sucks, Kenneth replied calmly. My wife goes out and has fun, and I'm supposed to just sit back and put up with it. I asked for a divorce, she gets the house, the car, the kids, and I get the bills. She hardly ever worked, but I had to bust my ass to give her everything I could. And that's just too damn bad, right? And now she wants to tell me that it was my idea to burn down our house so I could sit and rot behind bars and she and her lover or lovers, I don't know how many lovers she has, could all go to the Bahamas together on my dime? No, Mrs. Kutra, leave me behind bars. If I don't work, she won't get a penny of my money, will she? Yeah, the system really sucks, Sophia agreed. My first husband cheated on me. He didn't care, and I busted my ass to teach him and myself a lesson in law school. When he gets his degree, he'll tell me he's finally found the true love of his life, and I'll still be paying all the bills he racked up when we were married. That sucks, Kenneth agreed. Yeah, but there's a bright side to it all, Sophia smiled. I met my husband thanks to that asshole running away from me. And his one true love? Turns out he's HIV positive. Oh, Kenneth smiled. Okay, Mr. K. I'll see you in a couple of months. Sophia shrugged and rose to her feet. Chapter 3. Donald Pellichet was more than happy to let Jennifer K. go as a client. She had insisted that he not favor her over his other clients. Hell yeah, I'm right. They pay, bitch, he muttered after another sharp altercation. Dick Davis smiled understandingly as Donald walked out of the police station. I don't know who she's going to contact, but it ain't me, Donald warned Dick. Jesse Johnson entered the station, listened to Jennifer's explanation, and took her information about her secret account. Shit, there's at least 40,000 in it already, she said. Just get me the hell out of here. Jesse entered the information into his laptop, cleared the user ID field, and tried again. Mrs. K, I don't know how to tell you this, but, Jesse said after a long pause. Let me see, Jennifer growled, clutched the keyboard with her fingers, and screamed with rage when she realized the account was gone. What a little son of a bitch, she growled. And of course, since the house is in both your names, Jesse continued. What house? Jennifer shouted. That damn bastard burned it to the ground. My point, Mrs. K, is that you hired me as your attorney, but not as your pro bono attorney. Mr. Pellichet was your court-appointed attorney, said Jesse. My services cost $350 an hour. You do intend to pay me, don't you? Fine, just damn fine, Jennifer sighed. Get your lazy ass over here. I'd love to, Jesse lied and left the room. Come on, princess, Becky said, and led Jennifer back to the cell. I'm gonna make you mine, you hear me, punk? Jamal Westinghouse smirked, watching Kenneth sit on his bunk and reread Brave New World for the 100th time. No thanks, Kenneth replied calmly, but have a good day. Damn you, Jamal yelled, snatching the book out of Kenneth's hands. Kenneth calmly stomped on Jamal's head until his body stopped twitching. Hey kid, you don't have to come at us like that, huh? Complained one of the men. One of the men complained. One of the men complained. Calling me a beggar, huh? Hell, I haven't done anything for you, have I? That's right. You haven't done anything for me either, have you? Where were you when homie told me I was his new bitch? Or when he got in my shit, huh? Kenneth asked. Shit, I figured you'd guess. You know what I mean? Muttered the man. What the hell? Growled Captain Charles Viejo, seeing the dead body of Jamal Westinghouse lying on the floor. Slipped and fell, I guess, shrugged Kenneth. Just slipped, Charles complained. Jennifer was just leaving the courtroom with 5 other women in Bender police custody when a shackled Kenneth K. was brought into the courtroom. What's he doing here? Jennifer asked Becky Winter. They're not going to release him, are they? I don't know exactly. I heard he trampled another prisoner to death, Becky shrugged. Jennifer looked over her shoulder. 3 armed police officers were leading Kenneth into the courtroom. You've got to be kidding. He's a complete idiot. Jennifer laughed. No, you must be thinking of someone else. Oh no, ma'am, Bernice said. There's no way in hell I'm letting you go to Northside. Why not? Jadiah asked, swallowing a huge bite of chicken salad sandwich. Jalissa and I used to go there. Wow, and look how well you studied, Melvin said, earning a slap on the back of the head from Bernice. No, ma'am, come on. We're going to St. Thomas. It's a great school, Bernice said firmly. Ha ha, you'll have to wear that stupid uniform, smirked Jalissa. Smirked Jalissa. Smirked, 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 smirked. There's nothing wrong with this uniform, said Bernice. But Grandma, we can't afford this school, complained JC. Don't worry about that, just leave it to me, said Bernice. When do you think Mom will come to pick us up? Jalissa asked. After all, they have to know that she had nothing to do with setting the house on fire, right? Oh, and I'm sure your daddy will be out soon too, Bernice reminded the girl that there was another parent to think about. So how long has it been? Almost a month, right? Jadiah asked, finishing her sandwich. Yeah, it's been a month, Melvin agreed. A whole month. 4 long weeks of I'm bored and I have nothing to do and when is Mom coming and… Hush you, but Grandpa's right, Bernice said. What? Jadiah asked, looking at her grandmother. You and Jalissa aren't in school anymore, I know. I was at the graduation, said Bernice. Yep, now they're rewarding mediocrity, Melvin said, earning another slap on the back of the head. So do you think any of you can take the initiative? Go out and get a job somewhere? Bernice finished. What? Jalissa asked. A job, you know. People get up, get dressed, and go to it every day to make money. You've probably heard of them, said Melvin. It's in all the papers, hell. I've even heard people talking about the job on TV. You're kidding, right? Jalissa grinned. No, I'm not kidding, Bernice said. I asked you to help around the house. I don't keep a hotel here with free food and clothes and stuff, but none of you will lift a finger. What about her? Jadiah exclaimed, pointing at JC. What about her? Bernice asked, putting a hand on JC's shoulder. Who was that yesterday helping Grandpa cut copper? And helped me change the oil in my car the day before, Melvin cut in. And it almost got oil on herself, Jalissa objected. Whatever. At least she tried. At least she helped. At least she did her part, Melvin said. So you two have about… What do you think would be fair, Melvin? 1 week? 2? 2 weeks to get a job. A real, we'll pay you money to work here job. Or call Grandma Moore and see if you can't stay with her, Bernice said. Are you kidding me? Jadiah and Jalissa exclaimed. No, I'm afraid not, said Bernice. Does anyone want another sandwich? I'll take one, Melvin offered. No, honey, you're not a teenager. Bernice kissed him on the balding top of his head. Can I have another one, please? JC asked, holding out her plate. Sure, sweetie pie, Bernice smiled. Can I have some more, please? JC teased Jalissa. Oh no, be very careful, there's a vicious animal on the loose here, Melvin warned, as he felt pebbles rubbing against his leg. Grandpa, it's not, laughed JC as pebbles rubbed against her bare leg. Okay, One of you can sit down at the computer and start writing resumes while the other looks through the classifieds and finds something suitable. You'll all switch in an hour, Bernice suggested as she placed a newspaper on the table. Jalissa and Jadiah looked at each other in shock. It was unusually cold on the day of the trial in state of Louisiana, versus K&K, and Kenneth was grateful for the coat his mother had bought for him. Sophia and Donald stood thoughtfully between Kenneth and Jennifer. All rise. The Honorable Harold Monroe presiding, the bailiff announced. Jennifer smiled as Jadiah and Jalissa's father entered the courtroom. When Judge Monroe asked if everyone was present and ready to proceed, all parties agreed. Your Honor, if it pleases the court, Donald Pellichet began. Jennifer didn't see a glimmer of recognition, even when Donald insisted on using her maiden name and the names of her 3 children in his motion to keep her and Kenneth's case separate. Harold Monroe recognized Jennifer, though she was no longer the 19-year-old McDonald's employee who had so impressed him with her Mercedes-Benz and Rolex watch. But she'd had an affair only a few years ago. There were at least 100 women between her and now, and none of them would get any preferential treatment. In the interest of time and the budget of the state of Louisiana, your motion is denied. Continue, Mr. Rich. Harold interrupted Donald and gestured for the assistant district attorney to continue. But I didn't do it, shouted Jennifer as Adam laid out a theory on how Jennifer and Kenneth planned to defraud Young Insurance Corporation of nearly $300,000 by committing an act of arson. Counselor, if you can't hold your client, Harold warned. Yes, Your Honor, I'm very sorry, Your Honor, Donald said, placing his hand very firmly on Jennifer's leg. Jennifer continued to lash out and was eventually removed from the courtroom. Your Honor, my client is not contesting the state's version of events, but is asking for leniency. Remember, this is a man who, according to the district attorney, was manipulated and coerced into doing his will for years by the co-defendant. Sophia finally addressed the court after Adam Rich had finished his arguments. And, Your Honor, I ask that my client be released. In her own words, she had nothing to do with this heinous act or the subsequent attempt to defraud, Donald Pellichet said. This court hereby finds you guilty of aggravated arson under Section 4, Subdivision, Harold Monroe proclaimed, and was somewhat surprised when Kenneth smiled upon hearing the sentence, 8 to 12 years. No, keep your nose clean, you'll be out in 5 or 6 years, Sophia whispered, and patted her client affectionately on the arm. Bye, Daddy, JC sobbed as Kenneth was allowed to give her a brief hug. Jadiah and Jalissa didn't bother to appear in court. Grandma Moore was not to be disturbed by such nonsense. Grandma Moore did find it almost unbearable to have 2 spoiled teenagers her age on her shoulders and deeply resented Kenneth K's mother and father for not taking care of the 2 brats. But as unbearable and uncomfortable as she felt, Jennifer's mother couldn't in good conscience refuse her own grandchildren. Maybe we should have looked harder, Jadiah whispered to Jalissa. You can if you want, Jalissa grinned and turned on the television. No, I mean, we have work to do and we could, take care of business, Jadiah said. Yeah, you could if you wanted to, Jalissa said. But I'm bored sitting here all the time, complained Jadiah. Then go do something, Jalissa shrugged. Melissa Moore burst into the small apartment and stared at her 2 lazy and insolent grandchildren. It was one thing for these 2 to be lazy and brash with Kenneth K., whom she despised for being a man, and quite another for them to be lazy and brash around her. Do you think any of you can get your useless asses off the couch and go take this garbage out? She shouted. Okay, Jalissa complained and rose to her feet. And you, Melissa barked at Jadis, why don't you do something with that ground beef? Like what? Jadis asked, puzzled. Try cooking it. How about this? Melissa asked. I'm on my feet all day, damn it, busting my ass over. JD panicked, for she had never cooked a meal in her life and began sobbing in earnest. Oh, damn it, stop it, shouted Melissa. Okay, but I better not hear any more EW. I don't like it. What is it from you? Do you hear me? JC fit in perfectly with the 8th graders at St. Thomas Aquinas School. Her grades were good, and so was her attitude. And no one thought it was strange that she lived with her grandparents. There were 2 other kids in her class in a similar situation. Given the opportunity to step out of her 2 older sisters' shadows, JC excelled in sports. Coach D. Campion, wasting no time, contacted Melvin K. and asked if he could sign JC up for the junior varsity basketball team. Sure, but wait until softball season. She has a cannon arm, I promise you, Melvin told the excited coach. But I'm too small, JC objected. Nonsense, Coach D said. I've seen you lift the ball, and that girl is at least a foot taller than you. Everyone in the gym knew where Melvin K sat, and they knew JCK was his granddaughter. Rebounds were applauded, fouls were either loudly contested or loudly called, and points were applauded. Sit down, Melvin. The people behind you can't see you, Bernice said calmly. But you could see, Melvin shouted. That girl pushed her on purpose. I think your grandfather's here, Rain Sneed teased as they left the group. Yeah, JC smiled proudly. After losing the last game, JC was very quiet on the way home. What's the matter, sweetie pie? Bernice finally asked. I miss Daddy, JC admitted. Well, Christmas is coming up. Why don't you write him a letter? Suggested Bernice. Suggested Bernice. Suggested Bernice. Suggested Bernice. Suggested Bernice. Yeah, we can send him that picture of you and your teammates with the city trophy, Melvin enthused. But I want him to come home, JC whined, for once acting like a girl on the cusp of adolescence. Me too, Bernice admitted. Jesus, he may be your daddy, but have you forgotten? He's my little boy. Jennifer didn't fit in at St. Gabriel's school. Because of her beauty, she was targeted by the other inmates. Oh, and the male guards, and a few women, were her targets too. Her arrogant, bitchy demeanor didn't win her any friends when she first came into the system. And in the prison hierarchy, first impression is the only impression. Besides, any sign of weakness was immediately exploited. Her claims of innocence drew ridicule from the few who actually spoke to her. But I'm serious, she shouted. My crazy husband did this to me. Yeah, sugar pie, look around. We're all innocents here, laughed one girl. And most of us are here because some damn man screwed us, another girl offered. That first night, Jennifer began to pray that the next 10 to 15 years would pass quickly. Shit, I'll be 49 when I get out of here, she cried silently. Chapter 4. Kenneth smiled strained. He wanted to cry as he read the last letter from his daughter. The picture attached to the letter showed a young woman just entering adulthood. He wanted to cry looking at the picture, but tears were a sign of weakness, and weakness was dealt with very quickly in Angola. JC stood in her Clark's drive-in waitress uniform, long brown hair falling in huge curls around her, a cheeky smile shining on her face as she balanced a tray of food in one hand. God, baby, you're so beautiful, Kenneth murmured, glancing at the picture again. He remembered taking JC to a friend's birthday party held at the rink in Flowers. 9-year-old JC was nervous about the party. What if I fall? She asked. Then you'll fall, Kenneth replied. But I know you. I know you'll fall. Say so what? And get up and do it again. JC did fall, got up, and tried again. By the end of the party, she was begging Kenneth to take her with him the following Saturday. And by the end of the school year, she was begging for a pair of inline skates for her birthday. Do you know how to skate? John Clark asked the pretty 16-year-old girl. Yes, sir, my dad taught me, JC smiled proudly. I have my own, see? She pulled a pair of skates out of her backpack. He nodded in agreement, then looked at the application form she had filled out. It says here that you attend St. Thomas Aquinas High School, correct? John asked. Yes, sir, I have a 3.8 grade point average, replied JC, flashing her beautiful smile again. Good, good. Now let me tell you how things work here, John said, putting her statement aside. You mean I got the job? JC asked, panting with excitement. Well, we'll try you out, see how you do, agreed John. She almost didn't make it the first night. John watched through the window as his new employee spun, somersaulted, and pirouetted across the concrete pad. Damn kids playing there, he muttered to Nancy, the head cook. No, she's not playing, Nancy replied. She's having fun, but look, I bet you $100 she gets the biggest tip today. Oh shit, John exclaimed as JC, leaping over the wooden bench, rushed back into the kitchen diner. 2 cheeseburgers, 1 without pickles, 1 without onions, big fries, JC squeaked as she stopped in front of the soda fountain and started making a soda. See, Nancy said. She's having fun, but she's not playing. Uh-huh, said John, not entirely convinced. The other 2 waitresses moved out of her way as she carried a tray of orders past. If she spills, John warned as JC rushed back to the customer truck. If she spills anything, I'll eat it. Nancy smiled as JC spun in place at the last second and set the tray on the glass of the truck. John watched as JC prepared to give her change and smiled when the truck driver raised his hand, stopping her. "I bet she has the most tips," Nancy said and held out another order to one of the waitresses. Nancy received a $100 bill from John. A month later, JC was already teaching other girls how to skate more efficiently, more safely, and more skillfully. Kenneth looked at her again and frowned. He didn't like the way her uniform showed off her small tummy. The t-shirt didn't reach the waistband of her shorts. He also didn't like that his girl was skating with her back sticking out of the short shorts that were part of her uniform. "Can't be helped," he sighed bitterly, and put the picture in his Bible. The noise level in Angola was almost deafening, but over time Kenneth had learned to shrug it off. He looked around the dimly lit room and sighed. Angola had been the last place he could imagine himself when this story began over 4 years ago, but here he was, slowly awaiting either death or freedom. Jamal Westinghouse had friends. One of the men who sat in his cell the day Jamal was killed had met one of his friends and told him what had happened. So when Kenneth K. arrived in DeQuincy, Lamont Harrison was already waiting for him. Kenneth didn't know why this almost ugly muscular man had targeted him, but he knew he had no intention of tolerating it. Kenneth sat down and stabbed his fork into the unappetizing slop. "This is shit," he announced loudly to everyone at the table. He took a bite and grimaced. "I'm not eating that shit," he declared, stood up and threw the tray at the unsuspecting Lamont. Before Lamont could get to his feet, Kenneth grabbed the man's head in his hands and twisted viciously. "Mr. K," the warden pronounced. "Quite remarkable, I think. 94 prisoners and not a single person saw what happened." "As I say, I only got to my feet and—" Kenneth said. Yes, I know, Mr. K. You just couldn't eat what we call food, I see, Mr. K. We'll see if you like the food in Angola, Mr. K." The warden sighed. Kenneth looked at the picture of his youngest daughter again and smiled sadly. He held up a picture of his older daughter, Jadia, and her 2 children, both boys and both biracial. After her 3rd pregnancy, Jadia seemed to remember that she had a father and had called JC to get Kenneth's mailing address. Holy shit, did she really graduate from high school? Kenneth thought as he read or tried to read one of her letters. The handwriting was deplorable, the grammar was intolerable, and most of the words of more than 2 syllables were misspelled. But she sent him letters. She wrote to him. And every letter she signed, "Love you and miss you, JD." He looked at the last picture and shuddered. According to his mother, when JD gave birth to Robert, she had started sending JD $100 a month, but stopped when she found out JD was spending the money on tattoos instead of food. Robert and Samuel, huh? Kenneth smirked, knowing Jennifer was supposed to hate him. Jennifer was supposed to hate the fact that she had become a grandmother, and hate that her daughter was giving her children relatively common names. Kenneth sat down at his desk and began writing a response to JC's letter. JC's letter was on its way. He had written her very short letters. Judging by JC's letters, long letters could only confuse her. He debated with himself once more whether it was time to write to Sophia Katra, his lawyer. "My dear JC," he scribbled, "I suppose now is as good a time as any to be perfectly honest with you, JD, and Mrs. Sophia Kutra about what really happened that night. I wish at least one parent had attended her high school graduation," he thought to himself. Jennifer K. barely looked up as she was led into the courtroom, paying no attention to either Donald Pellichet's or Sophia Kutra's greeting. "Am I back for dinner?" she asked at last. "That's exactly what we're trying to accomplish, Mrs. K." Donald smiled strainedly. "We're trying to get you to your own home in time for dinner." She raised her head, then looked at the other lawyer. 5 years of prison life had cast a fog over her. One day blended with another, one noise with another, one smell with a third. There were no hard lines to indicate separation. "What?" she asked. Kenneth K. confessed. "He set the fire of his own free will. He cleared you of any involvement," Donald said. "That's exactly what I tried to tell you 5 years ago," Jennifer hissed, bitterness and anger building up in her over those 5 years. 5 years. 5 long years, and now you're willing to believe me. "Payback's a bitch, isn't it?" grinned Kenneth as he, shackled, was led past her by 2 armed guards. "You bastard," Jennifer hissed, venom spraying from her lips. "Mrs. K, please calm down," Donald advised. You want to look as prim and proper as possible in front of Judge Hill. To hell with that, and to hell with you too, Jennifer hissed. All rise, the bailiff proclaimed. Jennifer looked hatefully at Kenneth as he very calmly and clearly laid out the details of that night, including Jennifer's impromptu confession of Jennifer's multiple infidelities and the behavior of their 3 children. So, Mr. K, are you saying that Mrs. K knew nothing about and participated in neither the aggravated arson nor the subsequent attempt to defraud Young Insurance? Donald asked. No, she wasn't involved, smiled Kenneth. And in fact, Mr. Pellichet, there was no attempt to defraud Young Insurance. You can check with them. There were no claims. Hell, I knew there was no way in hell they'd pay up. If I may, counselors? Judge Stephen Hill asked. Mr. K, why now? Why are you revealing all of this now? Honestly, Kenneth replied, I was really thinking about taking this to the grave with me. To hell with that bitch. 19 years I busted my ass for her and her damn kids, and she knew they weren't mine and laughed in my face about it. But our youngest daughter is graduating in a few months, and I'd love to be there, but I know there's no way in hell it's going to happen, but at least her mom could be there. Very noble of you, Mr. K, Judge Hill said dryly. Now what? Jennifer asked as Judge Stephen Hill left the courtroom. Now we await his decision, said Donald. What decision? That bastard told him I had nothing to do with... Jennifer hissed. Yeah, now we just have to wait and see if he believes him or not, said Sophia. Remember, he's a convicted felon, Donald said sharply. All rise, the bailiff announced, and Judge Stephen Hill returned. Kenneth K. was shivering. The van was unheated. Bastards have a bad habit of dying when you're around them, Frederick Parr smiled, showing a gold tooth. Kenneth answered nothing. Frederick Parr held a 12-gauge double-barreled shotgun aimed at his chest. Yeah, all sorts of bastards suddenly up and dying and all that, Frederick continued, smiling broadly. Hell yeah, don't let that little white boy fool you, the second guard sniggered. That's one tough bastard. Isn't he? Frederick asked. Malcolm shifted his gaze from one guard to the other, then to Kenneth. So what did you do after all? He asked finally. Kenneth looked dumbly at Malcolm, then shrugged, turned his head, and continued to stare straight ahead. No, you bastard. You know what you did. Talk to me, Malcolm demanded, sure that the guards were lying, just testing whether he was gullible enough to believe their bullshit. You'll learn, Kenneth finally said in a voice barely above a whisper. People who run their mouths don't live long in Angola. Bastards who know when to keep their mouths shut have a much easier life. Bitterness was Jennifer's chief companion, and she dutifully took it with her everywhere she went. Martyrdom often appeared by her side, too. Jadia greeted her mom with enthusiastic squeals and genuine happiness, but she had no room for her mom. She lived in an apartment with a large space. Jalissa and her girlfriend were just moving out of another cluttered apartment when Jennifer found them, so there was no room for Jennifer in Jalissa's house either. However, Jennifer didn't want to live with Jalissa and Rudy. Rudy was a loud, arrogant, obnoxious Puerto Rican who had several needle marks on both arms. JC was still living with Bernice and Melvin while she was in high school. Oh, no, you can always visit your daughter, Jennifer hastened to assure Bernice. No, it wouldn't occur to me to separate the two of you. So where are you staying? That question made Jennifer realize that she didn't belong in Kay's house. So Jennifer turned to her mother for help. Oh, great, just freaking great, Melissa complained. Barely rid of your 2 offspring and now you come here to find a place to sleep? Yes, Mom, Jennifer shrilled. I'm so damn sorry, Mom. I just got out of jail, Mom. Remember? As soon as I get a job, I'm out of here, okay? Yeah, your 2 brats said the same thing. Still waiting for one of them to get off his ass and get a real job, Melissa grinned. Malcolm Jennings was sure Frederick and the other guard were lying. Kenneth was a quiet and non-confrontational man. Right, Malcolm smirked, squinting at the picture of JC in her waitress uniform. I told that guy, didn't I? Frederick asked Kenneth. There was no longer a wide grin on Frederick's face as he pointed the shotgun at Kenneth. Gee, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. What happened? Kenneth asked, feigning ignorance. Why, here, found him in the shower. He is hurt, said Frederick. Oh, it's terrible, said Kenneth. God, I hope you'll catch the horrid man who did it, sir. Cut the crap, Kay. I'm only looking for one reason, just one good reason to pull that damn trigger, Frederick hissed at an expressionless Kenneth K. Ooh, hey, Snow Bunny. What's your name, huh? Cecil smiled what he hoped was a seductive smile as JC pulled up next to his car window. Sir, could you turn the music down, please? JC asked, ignoring the man's question. You're disturbing our other customers. Oh, hey, to hell with that. I have the right to listen to whatever I want, Cecil growled. Bye, JC said, turned and galloped away. Mr. John, I asked him to turn the music down and he started swearing at me, said JC. Oh? John said, slammed the door of the diner and hurried to his car. John firmly told Cecil that he had two choices: turn off the music or leave. Grumbling and muttering threats, Cecil decided to leave, looking hatefully at the little white bitch whizzing past to the next latecomer. So, what's the biggest tip you've ever gotten? Terry, a slender blonde, asked, lighting a cigarette during a break. One guy gave me $10 if I jumped on the bench out front and didn't drop his hot fudge sundae, smiled JC. One guy offered me $50 if I gave him my disgusting underwear after my shift, Vanessa, a petite African-American woman in her 20s, admitted. Ew, squeaked JC. What did you do? What do you think? Gave it to him? Vanessa shrugged. Ew, oh, Vanessa, really? Squealed JC. What? Vanessa shrugged. Hell, the most I've ever gotten is $5, Terry admitted. Oh no, he's back, Vanessa said as there was a loud bang from Cecil. Cecil groaned as he saw a powerful man approaching his car. Look, I just want to eat, okay? He barked angrily at John. And I told you to turn that shit off or get out, John yelled back. Okay, that's enough. Satisfied? Cecil spat, turning off the music. Now send that little white girl with the brown hair over here and take my order. No, I'm standing right here. You can give me your order. John smirked as he watched JC and Vanessa rush past, trying to show off to each other. Cecil watched as the two girls completed their rounds, picking up empty trays and trash from the various machines. Sir? John asked loudly, catching Cecil's attention. Yes, give me a burger, everything on it, and a diet soda water, Cecil ordered. French fries? John asked. With fries? Cecil asked. If you pay for it, yes, said John. Then no, said Cecil. JC walked tiredly to her car. It was a leisurely evening, and for her, leisurely evenings were even more tiring than tense evenings. At least on busy evenings, she could move. Stopping, moving, and stopping again took a lot more energy out of her. Hey, bitch, I need to talk to you, Cecil growled and reached for her. On adrenaline, she snatched a can of pepper spray from her purse. Cecil shrieked as the poison spray hit his eyes. Blinded, he reached out to punch JC and knock the horrible canister out of her hands. JC didn't let the can out of his hands until Cecil wheezed, squirming in agony and unable to breathe. I called the police, John shouted, waving his gun. Go call your grandparents. Let them know you're coming home a little late. Melvin was already out of bed and getting dressed when Bernice hung up the phone. Be careful and don't speed, Bernice warned. Say no. My granddaughter is in trouble and all you're worried about is me speeding? Melvin shuddered. Melvin stood listening to Sheriff Dick Davis take everyone's statement. Unfortunately, since nothing had actually happened other than Cecil raising his hand to JC, there wasn't much that could be done. So you're saying she has to let him rape herself before you can do anything? Melvin asked the policeman angrily. No, I'm saying that if he did have a hand in it, we could charge him. But apparently your granddaughter pulls the trigger too fast, so... Dick explained patiently. Turning to Cecil, Dick said, You bother her again and I'll sit on your ass like a stink on shit, got it? Cecil didn't answer, only groaned as the EMT finished washing his eyes. It'll be a little sore, but you'll be able to drive, the medic finally said. Yeah, sure, sounds great, JC said, and hung up the phone. How's your mom, honey? Bernice asked, trying not to give away her disapproval. Fine, I guess, shrugged JC. Says he wants to take me out to dinner to celebrate graduation, you know. Oh, that's nice, Bernice said, trying to sound chipper. Manny's Mexican food, it's really good there, JC said and got ready to leave. Be careful, have fun, love you, Bernice said. JC looked into the living room and smiled. Melvin was lying on the couch snoring. Pebbles was lying on his chest and snoring too. Grandma, bring me the camera, JC whispered. What? Melvin flinched as the flash of the camera startled him. I'm sorry, Grandpa, JC smiled. I forgot to turn off the flash. Damn animal, JC, get your horrible cat away from me, Melvin complained. Oh, I would, if I had a cat, JC laughed, lovingly stroking the cat's belly. After kissing Melvin and Pebbles, JC walked out of the house. I hate cats, Melvin muttered, sitting down. We should throw that thing outside, let the coyotes have it. Yeah, the cat looks scared, Bernice smiled. Now go wash your hands, dinner is almost ready. Where is JC going? Melvin asked. To dinner. With her mom, said Bernice, pronouncing the word mom like it was vulgar. Cecil smiled in relief. He had run into Jennifer before and vaguely remembered her. Yeah, wait until you see my daughter, you'll like her, Jennifer enthused as they stopped in front of Manny's restaurant. Wow, does she look anything like her mom? Cecil asked. No, not really. Well, I guess she does, laughed Jennifer. Put some long brown hair on me and I think you can do it, said Jennifer. Must have seen her. Works at that. Oh, what's it called? At that cafe? Clark's? Cecil asked. There she is, Jennifer said, poking him in the muscular chest. Real long curly hair? Cecil asked, pulling his 9mm pistol out of the car's console compartment. Yeah, what do you need it for? Jennifer asked, noticing the gun. Just do it, Bunny. You know what I'm saying? Cecil smiled encouragingly. Hell, you never know what kind of ignorant bastards come to places like this. You know what I'm talking about? JC walked into the building, saw her mother sitting at her desk, and started walking towards her. She stopped when she saw Cecil sitting next to her mother, smiling evilly at her. Hey, Mom, what's he doing here? I thought it was just going to be the two of us, JC asked. It was, replied Jennifer, smiling happily. But I kind of ran into him. It's Cecil, my ex-boyfriend, and I just thought, you know? Cecil smiled even wider, leaning back so JC could see the butt of his gun. Oh, hey, JC exclaimed, spotting Bobby Corvaros, one of the waitresses at Manny's restaurant. Mom, I'll be right back. This girl and I went to high school together. She graduated last year. Hi, Bobby, JC said, walking over and hugging a surprised Bobby. Call the police, please, she whispered urgently in Bobby's ear. That man at my table has a gun. What? Bobby asked as JC smiled broadly. I know, she said loudly. I'm so happy to see you. Stay. Bobby, we don't have time. Play and chat with your little friends, Manny ordered his daughter. Oh, okay, sorry, I'll talk to you later, JC said loudly. Please, she whispered to Bobby. Bobby nodded and hurried into the kitchen. Have you ever eaten here? JC asked, picking up the menu and looking through it. Yeah, but years ago, before your father decided to cheat on me and send my ass to prison, Jennifer spat out, still feeling bitter. He's still there, JC reminded her mother calmly. And I sure as hell hope he dies in there, Jennifer said angrily. So the number 12, have you ever had one of those? JC asked. Ma'am? Officer Eric Green asked. Is there a problem? Yes, officer. This man has a gun, and I know for a fact that he is a convicted felon and is currently awaiting trial for a weapons violation, said JC, smiling at a stunned Cecil. Sir, put your hands where I can see them and slowly stand up, Eric said, placing his hand on the butt of his service revolver. You little bitch, Cecil hissed. So, Mom, JC smiled, looking at a pale Jennifer. Are you supposed to socialize with other criminals? What? Jennifer finally muttered. Did I say you have to socialize with other criminals since you just got out of jail? JC asked loudly. Did I? Do you hate me that much? Jennifer growled at her daughter. Talking about my daddy like that? You hope he dies in prison? Yes, Mom, I do, JC said, standing up. You know he's not even your dad. Jennifer grinned and stood up at Eric's request. You know what, Mom? JC smiled. I may not have his blood flowing in my veins, but I have his heart beating in my chest. If I go out, I'll be looking for you, Cecil growled at JC. How sweet, JC smiled sweetly. Officer, you did hear him threaten, didn't you? Yes, ma'am, I heard, Eric replied grimly. Bye, Mom. Thanks for a wonderful dinner, said JC and waved to Bobby. Chapter 5. JC stood up, walked across the stage, and accepted her diploma. She smiled at the 3 people who applauded when her name was called, and then returned to her seat. After the ceremony, she hugged Jadia, Melissa, and Jalissa and thanked them for coming. Like I'm going to miss my granddaughter going to college? Melissa exclaimed. And where? Jalissa started to ask, but then remembered that Rudy had been put on hospice last week. Robbie and Sammy? Jadia asked quickly. They're at Eric's. It's his day off, smiled Jadia. Oh no, don't tell me he sent them fishing again. JD smiled. Jalissa started coughing and JD turned and watched her, greatly concerned. Rudy was in the last stages of his illness, and Jalissa seemed to be keeping up with him. Finally, with watery eyes, Jalissa stopped her wet wheezing and smiled strainedly. So, who's ready for the Red Lobster? Melissa said with feigned cheerfulness. Maybe we're ready. I know there's going to be pizza tonight, laughed Jadia. Eric always says he's going to bring home lots of fish, and then they come in with all sorts of stories about how they almost caught one, but what did you expect? JC said. He's a lover, not a fisherman. Ooh, I can't wait to apply that to him, laughed Jadia. Jalissa, why don't you come with me? JC asked, placing a loving hand on her sister's arm. Fine. Jalissa smiled, exposing the gap where one of her teeth used to be. JC led them across the parking lot until they came to an old Buick. I can't believe you still have a car like that, Jalissa laughed. JC reminded her, I gave it to you as a gift. But Rudy said it was better to take $2,000, remember? Uh-huh, Jalissa said, losing her smile. Don't even think we had that money for a whole week before it ran out. JC took off her robe, tossed it and her cap into the trunk, and got into the car. Hey, JC, Jalissa asked as they pulled onto Johnson Street. Yeah? JC asked. I know I never told you this, but I love you, said Jalissa. JC waited for an answer. The last time Jalissa confessed her love to her, she asked her for money. When JC said no, Jalissa didn't speak to her sister for almost a year. The next time she saw her sister was at her grandmother's funeral. Melvin was the first to die, of a massive heart attack. So died watching the Saints, Bernice smiled through her tears. On three, JC whispered to the man in the booth. 1, 2, 3, go Saints. Bernice followed 3 months later. The doctor said the complications were due to pneumonia, but JC knew her grandmother had died of a broken heart, too lonely with her Melvin to go on living. And at the funeral, Jalissa and Rudy had the nerve to ask about the will, if there was one. So if there's no will, everything is divided 3 ways? Rudy asked. To 1, hissed JC, looking at the insufferable woman. This is not the time or place for that kind of talk. Second, you're not family. You're an outsider, so it's none of your business. And third, there's a will. The will be drawn up in 3 weeks. Jalissa and Rudy jumped out of the house, loudly proclaiming, how dare JC say that Rudy is not family and that Rudy is an outsider? I'm more family than you damn well ever will be. You hear me? Yelled Rudy at JC. JD refused to join Jalissa and Rudy, squeezing JC's hand tightly. JC smiled, realizing that JD was actually terribly afraid of Rudy, but courageously deciding to do the right thing. At the reading of the will 3 weeks later, Rudy became furious again when Sophia Kutra read that Jalissa would only get $10,000. Jadia nodded gratefully when she too was handed a check for $10,000. And to our granddaughter, JC Alice K., Sophia continued. JC's softball scholarship paid for her tuition, and JC didn't need anything while she lived with her grandparents. She prided herself on buying frivolous things that teenage girls buy with her own money earned from her job at Clark, and her grandparents prided themselves on buying her the necessities. Melvin and Bernice had left her a house, 2 cars, and nearly $800,000 in CDs, stock certificates, and their savings accounts. JD, I don't need all that, JC told her sister. You have 2 kids. Take some of it. No, I'll take Grandma's car. Mine is about to fall apart, JD said. No, I mean take some of that money, JC pleaded. I'll tell you what, JC, said JD. Grandma and Grandpa wanted you to have them. Keep them in your possession. If I ever need them, I'll come to you, okay? JC made the same offer to Jalissa, with Rudy making all the decisions. So how much did they leave you? Rudy demanded. Rudy, please. This is between me and my sister, said JC patiently. Bitch, it's about your sister, me and you, shouted Rudy. In the end, JC decided that Grandpa's car was worth $2,000, and if neither Jalissa nor Rudy wanted Grandpa's car, she would offer them the blue book value of it. I'll bring the money tomorrow, JC said, and walked out of the dirty trailer where Jalissa and Rudy lived. Kenneth smiled as he looked at the graduation picture. Boy, I really do have a pretty girl, he said aloud, then put the picture aside and read her letter. It saddened him that Jennifer, either out of spite or out of genuine emotion, had informed JC that he, Kenneth Allen Kay, was not her real father. "I don't care," JC wrote in her long, flowing handwriting. "To me, you have always been my daddy. You have always been the man I love, and I will call you daddy until the day I die." Jadia was also told that Kenneth was not her father, but she only shrugged, which infuriated her mother. "You don't even want to know who your father is?" shouted Jennifer. "I know who my father is," said Jadia, and continued cutting bananas for the banana nut bread she was making. "My father is Kenneth Kay, a man who gave up several of his hopes and dreams to provide for his family. Did you know he had a scholarship to play baseball and several teams were negotiating with him?" "So?" Jennifer asked, not paying attention. "Yeah, and he was also a really good bass player. Grandpa hated rock and roll, but even he said Daddy was really good and probably could have been a big star or something, but he gave up his toys and went and got a real job when he was going to be a daddy," Jadia continued, stirring sugar in a bowl. "Tell me, Mom, did you sacrifice anything for us? My father, whoever he was, did he sacrifice anything for us? So unless my father is dead and left me $1,000,000, I don't care at all who he is." Kenneth set aside JD's short, poorly written note and smiled at the pictures she had attached to her note. Her fiancé was a police officer in Bender, Louisiana, and clearly proud of his uniform. Jadia posed with Eric Green wearing a police officer's cap. In the photo, she laughs as Eric tries to take the cap away from her. In the next photo, she is pictured with Robert and Samuel. Robert was dressed in a child's police officer uniform, and Samuel was dressed in a child's firefighter uniform. He looked closely again. In both pictures, Jadia was wearing long sleeves that hid her tattoos. "Good girl," he smiled. He realized from her note that Jennifer had told her he wasn't her father, but Jadia didn't care. He was her father as far as she was concerned. "Good girl," he repeated. The letter from Jalissa came as a complete surprise to him, and he carefully pulled 3 pieces of paper out of the envelope. Jalissa obviously didn't trust her own handwriting. The letter was unsealed. He grinned to himself. She'd chosen a very bold font. "I'm afraid my eyes aren't what they used to be," he asked himself. "Dear Kenneth," was how her letter began. And although he knew he was not her biological father, the fact that she didn't address him as father or daddy or papa or daddy struck him. "So my mom came and said you're not my dad," the letter continued. "I'm so sorry. I can't think of another man I'd be proud to have as my daddy." He read on. In the letter, she apologized for her actions of the past few years, for her disrespect, for her attitude toward him. Sign of weakness or not, he allowed himself to let a few tears fall when she informed him she was in hospice care. "No one but me brought me to this state," the letter read. "I'm the one who stuck the needle in my arm, not you, not Mom, not Rudy, just me," the letter continued. "Kenneth, I know I've been a terrible daughter and you've never been anything but a good, loving father," Jalissa wrote. He smiled strainedly, and she signed the letter, "Love, Jalissa." "Dear Jalissa," he wrote. Jalissa smiled as the nurse's aide read the letter to her. She was too weak to hold the pages in her hands, too weak to lift her head and read the letter. "Love, Daddy," the nurse's aide finished the letter. "Really?" Jalissa asked. "He signed it, Love, Daddy?" "Right here. You can see for yourself," said the nurse, holding out the letter. "Again?" Jalissa pleaded. "Shall I read it again?" "All right," the young woman smiled. "Show it to me," Melissa demanded. "Show me what?" Jennifer asked. "Show me. Show me where the hell you've been looking for a job. If I was looking for a job, I'd have found something by now," shouted Melissa. "Nobody gets hired," yelled back Jennifer. "Everywhere I applied, they just told me, 'Thank you, we'll be in touch,' and that was it." "You've been to Babbage. Were you at that new place? Oh, what the hell is that, on 52nd? Melissa asked. "I told you they see the F on the application and don't even bother to read the rest." "Oh, for crying out loud, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Fill out the damn application and ask for a job, huh?" Melissa said, and stomped into the kitchen. "And let me guess, now you expect me to make you dinner, huh?" Jennifer lifted her now rather plump body off the couch and hurried into the kitchen. No, I'll do it all myself. What do we have?" Jennifer asked. "I've been here all day and you haven't looked once at what we have?" Melissa asked. Her anger was quite evident. Jennifer quickly straightened up the turkey and set the plate in front of her mother, then plated some for herself. After finishing their meal, both women went back to the living room to watch television. Melissa had deliberately chosen a program she knew Jennifer wouldn't like, a prime-time investigation. At your house, you can watch whatever you want, and at my house, we watch what I want. Melissa smirked and turned up the volume. Kenneth entered the brightly lit room without much hope. He had been reintroduced to the three people the state of Louisiana had mandated to evaluate him and his chances for a productive life outside of prison. He sat and silently regarded two unpleasant-looking men and an unattractive woman. The woman, even in her 60s, still wore the long hair of the days of her youth and still used the horribly outdated jargon of the bygone Woodstock era. He answered their questions at length, laying it all out as thick as he could, knowing that there was virtually no chance of release. He had 3 unexplained deaths on his record. There were actually 6 deaths that could be attributed to him, but he wasn't going to volunteer that information. But he was getting some sort of morbid satisfaction from playing the role of pious Petey for them. "Well, sir," he said, turning to one of the men, "my mom and dad died, and I wasn't allowed to go to their funeral, so I guess the first thing I'd like to do is visit their burial site. You know, my middle daughter? She's terminally ill, I just found out yesterday. She doesn't have long to live in this world, so I'd really like to see her, say goodbye to her. And I have 2 grandchildren, 2 boys. I would very much like to see them." He almost smiled. The woman devoured him greedily with her eyes, nodding her head in agreement. But even if she believed his ramblings, she would be replaced by 2 bureaucrats in ill-fitting suits. "Well, sir, the mattress factory? I don't know if they'll take me back after all. How long has it been? 9 years?" Kenneth shook his head. "Geez, I don't even know what jobs there are out there. Let's see. I'm 48 now, and I really don't know what I'd do. I guess janitor or something like that is the best I can hope for, right?" For almost an hour, Kenneth answered the questions, fighting the urge to just tell the 3 paper boys what they could do with newspapers, with each other, and with their mothers. "Thank you, Mr. K," one of the men finally said, and he was led out of the room. "I hope you get out of here, Mother. It's unhealthy and shitty having your ass in here," Frederick Parr said, without a smile. "You and I both know I don't stand a chance in hell of them ever letting me out of here, so don't even waste your breath wishing for it," Kenneth said as they walked down the dimly lit hallways. JC pulled herself together, then gathered her laptop case and purse and got out of the car. Through the smoked glass doors of Young Insurance, she saw a bored woman sitting behind a desk. Her blouse was too tight and unbuttoned 3 buttons, exposing a lacy red bra. The woman also had several tattoos that were clearly visible through the 2 see-through blouse. JC was glad that JD had come to her and asked to borrow some money to remove some of the tattoos. "Not the flowers," JD smiled. "Eric likes to eat at the garden." "Too much information." JD laughed. "How much do you need?" JD smiled at the receptionist and felt slightly perplexed when she looked up, shifted her gaze to her, then returned JD's smile. "Hello. How can I help you?" Michelle Ruiz asked. "Yes, JDK. Are you here to see Elizabeth? Elizabeth Baggett?" JC offered. "Miss Baggett," Michelle said, pressing the button. "Yes?" a metallic voice asked. "JCK is here to see you," said Michelle. "Please send her back," said the voice. "Down the hall. First door on the right," Michelle offered, showing a long, brightly painted fingernail. "Thank you," JC said, and followed the woman's directions. As she entered the office, she realized why Michelle had done a double take. On the other side of the desk sat her twin. "You went to St. Thomas Aquinas High School," JC said, smiling even wider. "I remember everyone always asking if you were my older sister." "I can see why," Elizabeth smiled even wider. "But I'm sorry, I don't remember." "That's for a reason," JC laughed. "I was an 8th grader when you were a senior." "Keep going, Avenger," Elizabeth smiled. "And let me see, you're here." "No, of course you hear it 100 times a day. I'm looking for a job. Just graduated business administrator, 3.92, said JC, pulling out her resume. "Keep it here," Elizabeth said, sitting back down in her seat again. "I printed it out from the email you sent me." "There was another girl who kept getting asked if we were sisters," JC said, sitting down in her chair. "Madison Marcoloni?" Elizabeth asked. "Yes, people always confused us, even though I had very short hair back then and she had long straight hair." "Yes, that's right, Madison," smiled JC. "Okay, now let's see." Elizabeth smiled, taking JC's resume in her hands. Worked at Clark's for 6 years? That's pretty impressive. Seriously, I mean, I see some resumes. There's 10 or 15 openings, and I ask myself, why would I hire you? You're just going to quit in a month or two, you know? What can I say? I loved working at the Clark, JC admitted. But I didn't go to college for 4 years to wear shorts in the winter, you know? Oh, I know who you are, Elizabeth laughed. Wow, you're that girl who jumps on the benches out front. Yeah, that's me, JC laughed. Do you ever wipe yourself? Elizabeth asked. A couple times. One time I had a whole pile of ice cream and I didn't put one all the way down and felt it slipping and tried to fix it. They all ended up all over the house, smiled JC. The guys felt so bad for me that they got out of the car and cleaned everything up before I came back with a replacement ice cream. I got a $20 tip for that. Well, I'm afraid it's going to get a little boring around here, Elizabeth smiled. No, ma'am, JC smiled. There's a skate park in Flowers. It's mostly for skateboarders, but I go there and show them what a girl can do. And on Sundays, I race motocross. Believe me, I don't miss a thing. Motocross? Elizabeth asked, eyes wide. JC had discovered her dad's motocross trophies and begged Melvin to tell her about her dad's motorcycle racing. Then they heard that there would be a race at Jack's Creek, and JC begged Melvin to take her to see it. The sun was scorching, the track was dusty, the kiosks were out of sodas and bottled water, the noise was deafening, and JC loved it. Here's Class 125, Melvin said. That's the class your father raced in. They used to be called animals. Those dumb kids don't have the brains to realize they can hurt themselves. JC watched as 14 boys raced around the track for 3 laps, kicking, scratching, and screaming, fighting for position. Oh my God! JC screamed as one cyclist nearly landed on another, making the highest jump at breakneck speed. I'll do it, JC told her grandfather firmly as they rode home that ill-fated Sunday. Melvin looked at the tanned girl and nodded. He knew he couldn't talk her out of it, and his grandmother wouldn't like it, but she wasn't going to talk JC out of it either. First, he tried to buy her an old Honda 100. The 14-year-old looked at the bike, then glanced at Melvin in disgust. Where are the flowers in the basket? She asked. She asked. She asked. Really, if you're going to give me a motorcycle for a little girl, you might as well buy everything you need for it, huh? He agreed and bought her a 1998 Yamaha YZ125. Yeah, it's getting a little old, he said. It's perfect, JC said and started helping Grandpa take it apart. They bored out the piston, put a liner in the exhaust, bought wider handlebars and lighter rims, and then looked forward to the next Sunday. That's my daughter. I wouldn't let her race in a class like that, the man said as they signed up JC. Well, that's why she's not your daughter, Melvin replied stiffly. The first race, which included 9 boys and her, turned out to be a disaster for JC. After 2 races, she found herself in 4th place. What? Melvin asked perplexed as a sobbing JC helped him load her bike onto the trailer. What are you crying about? It was your first race. You beat 6 boys. Did you see any of them cry? But I wanted to win, JC exclaimed. Honey, we all wanted it, said Melvin, hugging her tightly. Baby, next time, okay? You'll perform better next time, okay? Kenneth was a little concerned when he got a picture of a smiling JC holding the 2nd place trophy. Would you listen to us if we told you not to race? Bernice texted him. Oh, wait. We told you not to race and you did anyway. His heart caught in his throat when he saw her picture. His little girl, his baby, right in the thick of the motorcycles, fighting for the lead. Oh my God, he texted his father. I had no idea how scary it was for you to watch me do all that. And we survived, Melvin wrote, and we're surviving now. Melvin sent pictures of JC's first victory, and Kenneth was horrified. It had rained almost non-stop the day before, and by the time the 25th grade lined up at the gate, the track was a mess. The boy to JC's left, Bobby Orino, as JC knew, had a sneaky habit of crowding people around the outside of the turn. The first turn was a left turn, which meant he would be jostling with her. So when the gate came down, she ducked to the left, forcing Bobby to almost come to a complete stop. Dirt splattered in her face and legs. JC was grateful for the stupid glasses her grandfather had made her wear and the mouthpiece her grandmother had made her wear. We spent too much money on your mouth to let a rock knock your teeth out, Bernice muttered. I don't care if it looks stupid. You're wearing protection. By the end of the first lap, JC had to frantically wipe her glasses to see. By the second lap, She was in the lead and didn't have to wipe her glasses. When no one is splashing mud in your face, you don't have to wipe mud off your glasses. You cut me off, Bobby accused hotly while JC wiped her dirty face. Oh, poor baby, JC teased, her barb made even more harsh by her girlish voice. Watch your ass next time, Bobby hissed, and flinched when Melvin grabbed him by his tank top and lifted him to his feet. Apologize for calling her a bitch, or I'll knock out every tooth in your smart mouth, brat, Melvin hissed. In the next race, Bobby tried to get close to her, but JC held her position and Bobby had to concede in the first corner. Damn, girl! Robert Orino pounced on his son. You let a girl beat you? Come on, you damn swagger, we're going home and putting this bike up for sale. Behave yourself, and damn it, I'm paying all this money for you to let some girl beat you up. Kenneth was shocked at how dirty JC looked as she stood holding her first-place trophy. And in all the pictures, JC's dirty face glowed with absolute joy. Are you still racing? Elizabeth asked. Yeah, kind of grew out of the 125 class. I have a YZ250 now, smiled JC. Isn't that dangerous? Elizabeth asked. JC held back a sarcastic reply. She was trying to find a job. Well, that's why we wear protective gear, explained JC. When's the next race? Elizabeth asked. Sunday at Turkey Creek, smiled JC. Do you want to go? Elizabeth looked up sharply. Was it really written all over her face? Could people just look at her and realize she was in a lesbian relationship? There were no obvious signals coming from JC, however, just a genuine warm smile. I don't know, Elizabeth relaxed. I have a 2-year-old. He might not like all this noise. Little boys? JC laughed. Most of them like all the noise. Michelle chose an inopportune moment to interrupt her superior. Elizabeth had inherited the sullen and unprofessional Michelle from the previous branch manager, who had reprimanded her twice. Michelle's too short blouse and too short skirt, in Elizabeth's opinion, were the last straw. But Michelle decided her fate by sending one of Grant Johnson's clients to Elizabeth's office instead of Grant, simply because he looked angry. Michelle disliked Elizabeth and had a habit of sending all difficult clients to her boss's office out of spite. You're not Grant, the man growled, swinging Elizabeth's door open. Second door on the left, Elizabeth answered him calmly. Then why did that stupid bitch tell me the first door was on the right? Growled the man, slamming Elizabeth's door shut. One last question, Miss K, Elizabeth asked, her anger quite evident. Do you have any noticeable tattoos? She pointed to her left breast. It's a flaming heart and inside it says, I love my daddy, JC replied, blushing hotly. Nice, Elizabeth smiled. I don't have one, but if I ever had one, that's exactly what it would say on mine. I mean, my dad is the most wonderful man in the world, but my mom never loved him, and, JC continued. Say, the most wonderful man in the world is next to my dad, Elizabeth interrupted. No, JC said in her husky, girlish voice. Uh-huh, Elizabeth said, and rose to her feet. She reached out and squeezed JC's palm firmly. Miss K, I'm currently looking for a new secretary with the possibility of a promotion in the future. Are you interested? Elizabeth asked. Yes, ma'am, JC smiled cheerfully. I'm sorry you'll have to learn as you go. I highly doubt Michelle will want to help you when I fire her, said Elizabeth. Would you mind waiting in the dining room? It's the last door on the left. Yes, ma'am, JC smiled. JC looked at Eric and fought the urge to burst into tears. So? Eric asked, feeling uncomfortable in the silence. Baby, yeah. You know I really want to marry you, God. I love you so damn much, JD sighed. Then what's the problem? He asked, fighting his anger. Oh God, I know it's so stupid, but I really want Daddy to walk me down the aisle, you know? JD said, and a small sob caught in her throat. Any chance of him getting parole or something? Eric asked. I don't know. You'll have to ask JC. She's up to date on all that stuff. JD sighed again. She took his face in her small palms and looked deeply into his eyes. Please believe me, I love you. I'm so in love with you, I can't wait to be Mrs. Eric Green, but damn. This is probably really stupid, but I keep hoping that the longer I wait, maybe my daddy will come home, you know? JC admitted. JC walked into her house. The house was quiet, but it was always that way when Melvin, Bernice, and Pebbles weren't home. JC had considered getting another cat after Pebbles died, but she felt like she was betraying her sweet, loving, and loyal companion, so she didn't. She sighed gratefully, kicking her shoes off her feet. Her first day at her new job was fun, exciting, and even a little nerve-wracking. Elizabeth tried to help, but only Michelle knew some aspects of the phone system, and Michelle wasn't around to show JC. Michelle grabbed a few personal items off the desk, slammed her keys in her hands, and walked out of the building in tears. JC took her shoes into her bedroom and put them in the closet, then stripped naked and put on her father's baseball jersey. She was grateful to her grandmother for not throwing away any of Daddy's things after Daddy got married and moved out. Jennifer stood at the entrance to the junk store. Until now, the 5 people she'd seen leaving and the 2 families she'd seen entering had been beneath her dignity, worthy of her scorn. But her mother had made it clear. Get a job or find a new place to live. Even though Jadia now lived with her fiancé and they had a nice trailer, Jadia hesitated for a long time, then finally mustered up the courage to tell her mother there was no place for her here. I put a roof over your head so that, Jennifer snapped at her oldest child. No, you didn't, Jadia snapped back. Daddy did that, and you had nothing to do with it. And JD, that smug little bitch living alone in a huge house, smiled sweetly, said in her own damn annoying whisper, no, and closed the door in her mother's face. In the face of her own mother. JC didn't even invite her in, just opened the door and looked at her for a long time. What can I do for you? JC finally asked. Can I help? What? Jennifer whispered. Is this how you greet your mother? Your own mother? Said, well, I thought it was a little nicer than, what the hell do you want, you evil narcissistic bitch? Said JC. Jennifer stared at her youngest child, who was still a child in her early 20s, and then finally muttered that she needed somewhere to live. No, JC said and closed the door. Jennifer heard the deadbolt click. Coming to her senses, she got into Melissa's barely moving car and drove to the junkyard. The sign out front said they were hiring. She pulled herself together, opened the door, and walked into the large building. Hi, welcome to the junkyard, a young woman greeted her. Can I help you find anything in particular? A job, Jennifer admitted. Oh, you're in luck. The girl smiled broadly. We're just swamped here. If you can walk and chew gum at the same time, you'll get hired. Even if I have a criminal record? Jennifer asked. Yes, I have a criminal record too, Mindy Laporte admitted. 2 to be exact. And she turned and waved her hand toward a large woman who was talking to a customer. Plus sizes over there. Buy 3 items and get a 20% discount on the 4th item of equal or lesser price. Right, Mindy? Grace said. She's looking for a job, but she says she's worried because she has a criminal record, Mindy explained, then looked at the 3 high school students who had entered the store. Yeah, me too, Grace shrugged. Even have the tattoos to prove it. St. Gabriel's School. What about you? Me too. St. Gabriel's School did 5 years for arson, which I didn't commit, Jennifer said. Like the match game? Grace asked, hiding a smirk. No, I didn't do that, replied Jennifer. Okay, come with me, Grace said and walked to the back of the store. Here, fill this out. Find yourself an apron under that cabinet. Walk around the store and sort out where things are and then get to work, Grace said as she handed Jennifer a 1-page application. And what's the rush, huh? Mike didn't show up, so we're short-staffed. Do what? Jennifer asked, worried. Just help people, show them where things are, and then, when we close at 9, help clean up. In the meantime, if you see anything on the floor, pick it up and put it back, Grace said, and left Jennifer to fill out the application. Okay, Jennifer grudgingly agreed. She filled out the application, found the basket apron, and looked around. The layout of the store was fairly simple. The newborn and toddler clothing was in the front right side of the store. The bigger kids were in the middle right side, and the men's department was in the back right side. Petites and junior sizes were in the front left section. Clearance racks were in the middle left section, and the plus size section was in the back left section. And in the middle was the regular women's clothing. Oh, this is nice, she commented, picking up a top that had slipped off the rack. Employees get a 40% discount on non-sale items and a 10% discount on sale items, Mindy said cheerfully as she walked by with several tops in hand. JC was indulging in her favorite pastime, looking at the photo albums Melvin and Bernice had put together for her father. Kenneth was an only child, so the album contained several pictures of him taken over the years. She smiled lovingly as she looked at the snapshots of his childhood. Sipping wine from the only glass, JC reflected on his adolescence and turned her attention back to the prom picture. The smiling girl with her handsome father was a mystery to her. It was the only picture of a dark-haired girl. Melvin and Bernice admitted they couldn't remember the woman's name, and she wasn't in any of Dad's high school yearbooks. The pictures of his baseball glory made her wistful. He could have been so much more than a laborer in a mattress factory. But he'd done the right thing, the way he thought he should, and married her mother. She glanced at the wedding album and smirked, looking at Jennifer's white dress. The noise in Angola never stops, not even at night. It's just a different kind of noise. Kenneth lay sleepless, not listening to the cacophony around him. Jalissa had died of a terminal illness. Both JC and Jadia had sent him letters informing him of her passing. JC wrote that a nurse's aide told her that his letter was her favorite. Jalissa insisted that the aide read it to her every day. "So I read it to her again," JC wrote. "It made me cry. Your words were so beautiful. I love you, Daddy." "I love you," Kenneth said aloud. Amidst the echo of screams, laughter, groans, clanking and clanking, no one heard his words. The end. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for the next videos.